Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Our Kubota B3000 here behind us has some kind of an electrical gremlin, so we need to get into it and see what we can find out. So yesterday I was cleaning up some snow around here, and I needed to get my snow brush from behind the seat here. So I flipped the seat up, and when you flip the seat up, this little tab here touches on this little switch, and I'm not sure what it does, but I flipped the seat up a million times and this has never happened. When I flipped the seat up, something went zap and the whole tractor just shut off. The whole dash cluster went dead. It wouldn't crank, it wouldn't start, nothing. So anyway, I fiddled around with it, and of course it was outside in the blowing and cold and wind and snow. And what I found was when I unplugged this switch here, the problem went away. What it was doing, it was blowing a fuse here under the hood. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to get the hood side panels off, and I'll just give you a quick tour of the fuses. So this guy's got two fuse boxes. If your little B series Kubota, like a B3030, I'm not sure about the 2650 because that's newer than this, but a B3000 utility, any of those, a B2630. If it's an open station, it'll have a generator, not an alternator, and it won't have this fuse box here. This is the big, heavy power feeds, right? For the air conditioner and all the stuff in the cab. An open station one won't have that. And they all have this fuse box on this side. Although the open station one, it's a much smaller fuse box. I think it's only got 4 fuses in it. Like my B3030 has. Get off of there. So what we kept doing, we kept blowing this 5 amp fuse down here. And that is the OPC fuse, or operator presence circuit, which those seat switches and a lot of other stuff is tied into. So what we've got going on here is that one switch, that front switch in the seat, rather than it closing and sending a signal back to the OPC module when it's operated, the return side of it is shorting straight to ground and blowing the fuse. And that fuse, because it's the operator presence control, it runs, there's 2 big relays. Well, there's a bunch of relays in the dash, but there's 2 of them that run the circuitry. They send power to the ignition, to the fuel shutoff solenoid, and that goes dead, so your tractor doesn't run. And what we know already is that our switch cannot be shorting to ground because it's a plastic body. It's completely encapsulated. So there are a lot of things that could go wrong with it internally, but shorting to ground is not something that this switch is capable of doing. Although I think what we are going to do is get the meter and test it. So this is a normally open switch. You can see in its natural position, there's no continuity. When we push the plunger, the switch closes and we get continuity. And you can see there, look at the resistance across the points. 0, 0, 0.0. So there's not a high resistance situation or anything. This switch is working properly and efficiently. Here we've got the electrical diagram for this thing in the service manual. And of course, even though our seat has 2 seat switches, this diagram seems to only show 1 seat switch. So anyway, we'll figure that out. It does give you wire colors. So we're going to look at the wire colors on this one here and see which switch it is. Because there's a switch that detects the operator's presence on the seat, which I'm pretty sure this is. And then there's the seat is tilted forward switch, which the other one is. The schematic in my manual is, well, basically only going to be a little bit of a help, as It doesn't include this switch, and all the wire colors are different. So we're probably going to have to wing this a little bit. Anyway, you'll see on both of these switches, there's a red with black tracer. That is probably the power to the switch. And then the one wire that is correct in the book is this yellow with red tracer. And that seems to be the output of this switch. So anyway, what we're going to do is first we're going to check for continuity between these two and see what we've got. Okay, so we can see there we do have continuity between those two. So that is basically the hot side of those switches. Now we're going to check the output sides of them and see if they go, either one of them goes to ground. So you can see here we've got the output side of the tilt switch going right to ground. Should not do that. And we've also got the that same conductor, we've got continuity to the hot side of these switches. That's quite interesting. So what I'm going to do now is take the dash apart and unplug the OPC module and see if this condition persists. You can see I've got the dash apart and our short persists. So we have not disturbed whatever it is that shorted out. This here is the OPC module. There's our blue and white wire, you can see there. When we unplug the module, the short persists. So we've got to look for it somewhere between here and there. We've got a short to ground. So we can see here probing into there's the blue and white wire in the cavity on the corner there. We have continuity. So my guess is that this wire is pinched somewhere. So I'll have to have a look for that. Let me just check something. If I can go to ground from this end of it, should be able to. Back probe it. Yeah, so from either end we check this wire, it's got a short right to ground. We can see right in there, you can just barely see it, the wires from the seat switches come down through the floor and they join into this main harness. You can see it up at the front there, snaking down that bulkhead. Now, what I can do here, I can pull out this end and I can see it moving at that end. So that tells me there's no pinch, at least between there and where it drops down. And to pull this apart, to look at that harness underneath there, I have to take the wheels off. I have to take the inner fenders, the seat, all the floor pans. That could be a very large job. So we're going to try and avoid doing that if at all possible. What I am going to do right now is unwrap the harness underneath that seat. I'm going to unwrap this here and see if I can see any damage to this harness or anything like that. And if you're wondering what's inside the OPC module, that's what's inside it. It's still available from the dealer. It's over $300. Ouch. Now something very interesting in here. There's a safety switch and you can see there's the guts of it. The safety switch has come apart and it may have been shorting out the whole bloody system. So I'm trying to get it out of here without having to take the wheel and the inner fender off. Bear with me, I'm going to reach in there. I can get the base part out of the transmission quite easily with a socket. I'm having a hard time getting the top part of it unplugged from the harness. It's a long way in. Anyway, give me a sec. Okay, I got that part of it out of the harness. Now we got to get a socket and get the base part of it out of the transmission. So here's our switch. You can see, or the base of it. This is the gut part of it, and that goes up in there. And when the plunger gets pushed, this steel sleeve slides up into there and completes the circuit. Not sure what this switch is for, but we need to try and put it back together. Alrighty, so what we're going to do, I'm going to go around here. I've got this thing all back together. And then I'm going to put a C-clamp or something around here to hold it. You can see how it's got a little, I want to hold it together like that. And then we're going to go around here and touch up this crimp a little bit to get that thing tight down in there so it stays together. There we are. So we went around and touched up this crimp and got this thing back tight in there. Now what we're going to do, the plunger works and it springs back like it should. So we're going to get the meter and see electrically if it works. Okay, so here we go. This is a normally closed switch, and when we push on the plunger, it goes open. So it's working. We'll go ahead and put it back in and see if that's affected our issue at all. I'm not sure it has or it hasn't, but it was definitely something that needed to be repaired. There we have it. Our short to ground is gone. Perfect. So we ended up, I guess we took the dash apart for nothing, but thankfully it only takes a few minutes. We can put it back together now, and at least we know that there's no problem in there, and we're not going to blow the fuse anymore. Alrighty, so we've got this all back together. I got the harness tape back up. Got our two switches plugged in. That switch, of course, I had to put back in. This switch here, this is the one that everybody puts a jumper wire across. I'm not telling you to do it because it's a safety switch and it's there for a reason. Anyway, it's hooked up as it should be. Factory correct. Now we'll go ahead and put the dash all back together and see what happens. Well, let's see what happens. See if the ignition switch will light up our dash. Yes. Glow plugs. Yes. Oh, let me turn the radio down. Check out what he's got coming. Now, I've got the PTO lever on, so the engine should not crank. Good. Off. I'm not going to start it up in here. I'll just give it a bump. Yep, good. Okay, so what we're going to do now is leave the ignition on and tilt the seat forward and see if it blows the fuse. Let's see what happens. Here comes the seat. And ignition is still on. All right. So far, so good. The real acid test will be doing it with the engine running. Now I'll go ahead, put the rest of the dash together, and we'll test it for real. Okay, now that we've got it all back together, we'll try it again. So, ignition is on. Let's flip the seat. All right, ignition is still on. Let's do it with the PTO turned on. There you can still see ignition is still on. So it looks like we have Solved our problem. I guess while it's sitting here, I'll just give it kind of a fast once over, check all my fluids, check all my lights, check everything like that. Well, lights all work. Okay, let's test this thing out. So I'm sitting on the seat, PTO on. We've already tested this, but we'll test it again. Shouldn't crank. Good. PTO off, it cranks. Now, if we're on the power pedal, i.e. power pedal not in neutral, whether forward or reverse, it should not crank. Okay, that's forward, no crank. Reverse, no crank. Neutral, it cranks. So what we're going to do now is start it up, and I'm going to come off the seat, and it should stay running. However, once I put the PTO on and I come off the seat, it should quit. So let's try that. All right, she's running. I can stand up off the seat. It keeps running. Once the PTO is on, if I come off the seat, the engine should quit. Okay, there we go. So that is all working. Now the last test we're going to do, I'm going to start it up and flip the seat forward and make sure the thing doesn't quit. Okay, out we come. Good, super, she's still running. Good, we fixed it! Hooray, we fixed it! Well, I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. The manual, unfortunately, I guess it's the wrong version or from the wrong. They sell these things all over the world, and there's all different rules about what safety equipment they have to have depending on where they're selling them. And maybe the manual I've got is from a different part of the world where it's got different requirements, and what's in that manual is not really what we have here in this tractor. But it gave me, you know, at least an idea of where to look. So it wasn't all that bad. Anyway, it could sit in here now and wait for it to snow again, and we can get out and put it through its paces. I'm glad this is behind us, because let me tell you, it was a big shock to me when the thing just quit in the middle of the driveway. And what in the world has gone wrong with this thing? Anyway, and of course, just when it quit was just when the weather was turning from mild to wild. It was just after a snowfall. It was mild and calm. And then we had a cold front coming in behind it, and with high winds. And as I was out there working on it, trying to get it running just so I could get it in here, it was getting colder and colder and windier and windier. And I can't remember what I did. I finally jumped something or something to get it going. And just so I could get it in here and then go through it and figure out what was wrong with it. Anyway, it's all done. It can go back to work. And I guess that's it for now. I'd like to thank you for coming out and seeing us, and I hope you'll come back again. Until then, I'm Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.